I have to tell you, truthfully, I am extremely excited today. I'm not nervous, I'm excited because I was a little bit, we go on vacation, we start to forget things and just enjoying life. And it's so easy to start to enjoy life without God, And a lot of people want that. They want God's promises, but without God. I know it's said too much, but as we came back to the reality of life, to seeing all of you and your wonderful, loving faces, your lives, let's see, I look out there, I'm thinking, Hannah is not here today. Anybody else not here today? So it's your job. So see, it's not that the sheep have to shepherd the sheep, but you know what? You have a double duty. You can be a sheep and a shepherd in real life. And so think about that. Who's missing? And if somebody maybe should give Hannah a call and see how she's doing. And maybe what's the reason she's not here. I know Mommy's here, but that's so, as a church, let's start doing that because I'm going to fail. Every time, I'll miss somebody and I won't phone. But I'm thinking about it today that really we ought to do that together, shouldn't we? All right, so I've been praying. I've been thinking, what will we do next? And I wanted to meet with Pon as well, and we didn't have a chance, but we talked. And I've been thinking about going back to the beginning. And we never did do a series on Genesis, but I did preach here and there. But I don't want to do one of those. Genesis is like 50, how many chapters? 50. And so if I did that, it would be hard for me, especially at my pace. We wouldn't get through it. I'd lose you. So I just want to do something more specific. Admittedly, just to fill in a little gap between now and Christmas. So it's maybe 6 sermons, 5, 6, 7. We'll see how it goes. But I want to look at the life of Abraham. And I want to follow him. If you allow me, I want to be your tour guide. And basically, I'm just going to follow Abraham a little bit. Now, he didn't just begin here where I'm beginning in Genesis 11, and Pon is going to pull that up. But knowing that we're going to go from about Genesis 11 to 22. That's where we're going to be walking. Just a short place. If you can, and you're a good reader, not like me, a faster reader, then read all of Genesis. If you can't, then read maybe chapter 10 to 30. And if you're slow like me, well, maybe just read chapter 10 to 20, or 22, or 23, or 25. Or maybe just for next week, just you read chapter 11 to 15. Something like that. Because just like any tour, now I got to tell you, the cutest thing, my little granddaughter, she discovered tour guides while we were traveling. So she decided that she would be our tour guide. Like everything she looked at the people that were serving us and she wanted to serve. She would look, this is 2-year-old little kid, right? And it just, especially Grandpa, it melts my heart when I see this. Well, this one time she's just, she's got a little thing like this, a map. And she just got it under her arm and we're going along and she kept stopping and putting it on the ground, looking at it, and then, let's go. And I'm thinking, what? And then it dawned on me, she's pretending to be the tour guide. Okay? Well, pretty much that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend to be your tour guide. And maybe not as cute as my granddaughter, but I want to take you out on a little bit of a journey, right? And I want to focus. As we follow Abraham just a few times. Now, this is big stuff that I'm about to share with you, and I'm hoping to make it so that we get something out of it. So I have to focus because there's 1,000 things millions of things that I could tell you about Abraham, but I want to focus on God's call on a man and a woman. Because that's all he was. He was just a man and his wife was a woman, and God called him. He took him out, so to speak. And that's what I want to focus on. What does it mean to obey God's call to follow him? Now, as I introduce this old man Abraham, And I'm going to call him Abraham all the time, but he was Abram, and then God called him Abraham. And the thing was, from the best that I can tell, what it meant was Abram meant father, and then daddy, and then Abraham means big daddy, just a bigger daddy. But what it really is that Abraham, the man, was the first Hebrew in the Hebrew nation. That's what it means. And so it wasn't because he was brewing coffee. Now, I heard Lynn say that before. He didn't brew coffee, but he was called Hebrew because the root word of Hebrew is one from the other side. You see, Abraham at one point heard God, and by obeying God, he decided to cross to the other side. In other words, he was among a people that worshipped everything and everyone, but they didn't worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so, because he was called out, right, he joined the other side, the side where they would worship only one God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. One God, three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And Abraham was about to enter into a journey that would give him an intimate relationship with that God. That's amazing, right? The setting in human history is this. I hope you get this. I hope you understand this. That in human history was in a decline. Now you might think today we're in a decline. Well, that's it. That's the nature default of human. Period. When we make history on our own, by worshiping ourselves and other things, the creation, we decline. We always decline. Right? And so human history back then, no different than today, was in a decline. But very serious moral decline. Idol worship everywhere. I mean, people were almost not... I mean, I visualize them as savages. I don't know how savage they were, but it wasn't good. Evil of all kind was everywhere. And God kind of slows things down a little bit. If you remember, and you have to look and read the Bible, but the Tower of Babel, I mean, that's a big thing, right? Men decided, hey, you know what, we can be like God. We're going to get up there and, see what's happening. We're going to be, and they built this thing, and it became so dangerous. Not to God, but to themselves. Because they don't need God anymore. And God had to frustrate their plans and mix them up and made all kinds of languages. And that's why now we have all these different languages in the world, I suppose. But he scattered them and confused them and scattered and came against some of their plans of the Tower of Babel. Because they were out of control. So, it's bad news for the human race way back there, right? And but in chapter 11, we get a record then. It goes back all the way back there. We get a record of the generations, all the way from Shem, which was the last time. Well, not the last time, but because there was Noah, but there was this one time when things seemed to have gone wrong. This is right at the beginning, right? And had gone wrong, and sin had come into the world. But Shem was a ray of hope. His lineage was going to sort of give us hope that it wasn't all over, right? But it was. It went astray as well. But it says in the Bible that there is a record that he did worship God, and he knew God, and his children did. But he also, things went wrong again. But to Abraham, as this genealogy, which you'll have to go and read all on your own, in chapter 11, it traces very accurately all the way down to Abraham, which is still 2,000 years ago, but back then. And if I refresh us in verse 25, but I didn't tell Pon to find that, so don't worry about that. Start at 27. I want to just read these few verses for us today and fill in, and there is a lesson. So, Nahor lived 119 years after he became the father of Terah. So actually, rather than put that up, can you just put that map up there, of the people? Let's see if it shows up. If you can. Oh, did I send you that picture? Yeah, oh, there it is. I scribbled over it. But so there, if you can see it, and if you can, the very top box that I put a circle around, that would be Terah. And became the father of more sons and daughters. Terah, so this is Nahor. Then Terah lived 70 years, and then guess what? I guess his wife became a father, of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. And you can probably see them, I kind of highlighted them. Now, the thing is that Haran, I believe it was, died very early. But Lot, his son, which would be the nephew of Abraham, was left without a father. All right, so that's sort of, if you look at that, and then just see here if I can get closer to my thing. So there you go, from Abraham and Sarah comes Isaac, Jacob, and then the tribes of Israel. And from that comes the answer to this amazing promise. Abraham, you're going to be a great man. Through you, all the people of the earth are going to be blessed. And what was that blessing? Jesus was that blessing. That's where God was going with that. Let's read, starting at 27. After he's given that, he says, this is the genealogy of Terah. Terah begot Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Haran begot Lot, which I just said, and Haran died before his father Terah in his native land in Ur of Chaldeans. Now you're going to hear me use that play on words. God said, you got to follow him, you got to leave where you are. Ur of Chaldeans. So that's how I remember that, right? You got to move from where you are to where God wants you to go. So he did. He called, I don't know. As I was looking at this, it was actually Abraham's father that left with Abraham and the family. Verse 29. Then Abraham and Nahor took wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of... so you're going to have to stop and think about that a little bit, but basically I think the second cousin marriages happened, or something like that. And Terah took his son, Abram, and his grandson, Lot, and the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law, Sarah, his son Abraham's wife, and they went out with them from where they were, Ur of Chaldeans, to go to the land of Canaan, and they came to Haran, and they dwelt there. The point there is, they got like halfway, got tired, they stopped, and they lived there. So the days of Terah, in verse 32, were 205 years, and Terah died in that place, Haran, short of the land of Canaan, where God had told them to go. So, Pon, if you could throw up that map, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, because it's important that you know, because this is our faith, real, as could get. Can you do that? There it is. Now, if you can see there, you see where you are, not where we are, but where Abraham and his family was, Ur of the Chaldeans. And remember when I said that he crossed over? He literally did cross over the river Euphrates a couple times, according to that map. But he did cross over to the other side, to the side that worshipped our God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you can see where Haran is, way north. He headed north. And then his journey started south, and all the way to Shechem and Bethel, and where Jerusalem is, the land of Canaan, where God had promised. But he stopped short, way up there. And things happened there. All right. So next comes this call to Abraham now. And you can leave the map. Just put it in your mind. That's what it looks like. And I want you to notice that Abraham is not that special as we go through this, or great. It's God who makes Abe great. It's God who makes Abraham great. I mean, there's stories that just curl me. I mean, like the story that I kind of not going to probably deal with too much, but when later on you'll see that he'll go to Egypt because they're in a famine, and he says to his wife, like, "You're so beautiful, just say you're my sister." I mean, that's awful. And then Pharaoh took his wife because he didn't know. He says, because if not, they'll just take you and kill me. I mean, this is the kind of man God chose. I mean, the character of a man like that. I mean, you'd think today, well, that's not the guy I want to really be in ministry with. No character. That's Abraham. He was just a normal guy. But what made him great is the call of God on his life and on our lives. That's what makes us great. It's God, his call on our lives. And as we read our passage, what I'd like you to do is to take note of a couple of things. This call, which each one of you has received, you've got to understand this. This call is very important. You've received it already if you're here today. More than likely, unless somebody dragged you in here and tied you down, you've probably received this call. This call is powerful. It has huge power in it. It came directly from God to you. The nature of this call is extremely radical, and I want you to notice that. And then the receiving of this call by each individual person is paramount to following God, to being a Christian, even today. So now in Genesis 12, so I skipped a whole part, and now I want to go to Genesis 12, verse 1. Now the Lord had said to Abram, and here's the first radical thing. Now, you know where they are? They're not where they used to be. You are. They are in that other place, Haran, right? North. And here's what he told him. He said, "Get out." Actually, the translation is, "Get yourself out, Abraham. Get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you." You're not there yet. Get out. From way up there. And if you remember that map, way up north, he's saying you got to go south. But not too far south. You know, it's kind of like slippery slope once you head south. I will make, and then here's the promise. He says, if you take this call, right, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And in you, all the families of the whole world will be blessed. And so Abraham said, okay. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. He took his nephew. Of course, he took his wife, and Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Then Abraham took Sarah, his wife, and Lot and his brother's son, and all their possessions, and they gathered. They had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, all the tribes and servants and people that work with them, and the animals and the donkeys and the monkeys. I mean the goats, and they departed to go to the land of Canaan. You see, his father didn't get there. Heard a call, did leave where he was, but didn't go far enough. Now, I tend to think that some of us may want to be thinking about our own walk right about now, and know, have you really gone far enough? Because I will be challenging you whether you've really answered the call of God. In fact, not only that, I'm challenging myself. So where am I sitting?